Hi, welcome, hello, I'm glad you're here. This is Behind the Alias and I'm your host, Jim Buteau, alias Nostra. On today's episode, I have the honor to sit with Pascal Maynard Alias pmayne, a professional Magic the Gathering player. He finished top 8 in 2 Pro Tours and 13 Grand Prix. He now runs his physical and online trading card store as well as hosts multiple events and tournaments via his community called the Mythic Society. This week, we discuss the current state of the game as well as why it's the best time to start playing Magic the Gathering, whether you're a returning player or a complete noob. Pascal also shares his thoughts about the pro scene and the life of a professional MTG player. On the Let's Chat segment, Pascal reacts to the controversial limited draft pick he made back to 2015 Grand Prix Las Vegas that made him as famous as he is today in the MTG community. We finally get to know how much the famous stamped foil Tarmogoyf sold for and everything that went through his mind during his famous 45 seconds. On the What Happens Online segment, we find out if MTG professionals can naturally be good at Hearthstone. On the Game Time segment, we play Unrailed, a great party game. If you haven't already done it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss the subsequent segments. We have a lot of awesome stuff coming down the line that you wouldn't want to miss. Now, while this week's guest is widely known for a draft pick that happened 5 years ago, #Goifgate, he's also a phenomenal player and individual. Time to top deck. Hi, welcome, hello, I'm Jim Buteau, your host, and this is Behind the Alias. Today, Pascal Maynard Alias pmayne joins me to discuss his life with Magic the Gathering. Imagine there's 1,000 people watching this that have no clue what Magic the Gathering is. How do you describe the game, and how do you sell it to them?
I like to say to people who know a little bit about games that it's like a good mix between chess and poker, as in you have a lot of strategy, but just like poker, you also have a lot of variance, a lot of luck. So you have to use that luck and mitigate it as much as possible to make the outcome favorable for you.
So Magic the Gathering's been out since, I believe, 1993 or something. It's been out for almost 30 years now. Is it too late to get into Magic if you've never played?
Absolutely not. It might be the best time to get in, as in it's never been easier to learn the game. That's one of the upsides of the game. The game is super complex. If you compare it to Hearthstone, for example, that's like a dumbed down version of Magic that was made so that you can play on mobile and that everyone can learn it very quickly. They just removed a lot of what you can do in Magic and just made a simpler version. And that's one of the reasons why Magic was so hard to get into. But they've now with Magic Arena, which is a platform similar to what our Hearthstone has. There's tutorials that are super well made, and just even the physical card game, they've made products that makes it a lot easier to start playing. And stores that sell the game, they need to understand how to sell the game as well.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty easy to get into.
Magic the Arena, you said that's free for people?
Just like Hearthstone, you can play forever for free if you want, but it takes forever to get all the cards you need. So if you want to have more or play bigger events or whatever, you need to buy gems, which is the in-game currency.
Okay, got it. So they made kind of a loot box or a random pack system that you need to buy packs, or
there's a currency that you can literally buy,
right? Or you can grind your way just like Hearthstone and unlock.
The economy is exactly the same as Hearthstone.
Okay, which is pretty horrible. I hate it. That's just me. That's actually what made me stop playing Hearthstone. I hate that it takes so much grind or so much money and you don't even know what you're getting. I don't know. That's just something I don't like. We've been hearing for years that the game is dying, yet it's showing no sign of dying. Why do you think people keep saying that? And why does the community feel that way?
First of all, it's using physical cards in a world that's moving to technology. And when Hearthstone came out, everyone's like, how does like a new game like that has a way to play on mobile where while Magic existed forever is the basis of all the card games that existed and doesn't have its own like online platform, or had one but like was really bad. But actually the reason that it's never going to die in my opinion is it's physical, and like people look for that social aspect to like meet other people, and like the feeling to play with physical cards is a lot different than like doing the same thing that you do all of the time on your phone or on your computer.
Flipping the cards and
Yeah, flipping the cards, like all these like little flicking the cards, like all these little things that like you wouldn't understand until you play it, and then you understand, and then you're like, I understand why now. Most recently, like especially during COVID, you might have heard from Pokemon, for example, like the prices of Pokemon cards just went up crazy because people started investing in collectibles a lot more. Like people have a lot more disposable income because they don't go to restaurants, they don't go to bars anymore. In Canada, they have PCU or whatever it's called in English, like infinite free money, free on quotes. So like people have been spending crazy in collectibles, and Magic has been hit by that as well. A lot of people have been getting into Magic, buying like the old cards and stuff, and the prices have gone up, like have skyrocketed on some old cards. So that's another thing that's going to make it never die, in my opinion. Like there are way too many like collector's pieces that exist now, and not just Black Lotus or whatever that you might have heard of. It's a lot more than that. It's like thousands and thousands of different cards.
You recently opened the store right in the middle of COVID, and while it might be a bit scary for people to think about starting a business during COVID, you're actually kind of embracing this boom into collectibles to I guess make the best of it, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't know. I was thinking like everybody that Magic physical card game would get hurt for like a year or whatever because of COVID. But I was already committed into doing it before COVID happened, like a month, like 2 months before. Because when I started, the store was only online and not physical. So like the commitment is not as big. And I was already almost ready to do it. So I was like, whatever, I'll just try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And like I was expecting COVID to be hurtful, but then the opposite happened, and I was selling like crazy. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's good news. So I've been doing that for like, let's say like 5 months of like in midst of COVID. Been doing super well, and then that's when I decided to open the physical store because the online store could support all the extra, like the rent and all that stuff. So
if we dive a little bit deeper into the game state itself, I guess within the past couple of years, Wizard of the Coast they've added more to the game. I guess they've added the Commander, and I guess it's an attempt to bring new players. What would you say? What's the good of the current state of the game? What do you like about what's in the game today versus maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, well, I think COVID changed Magic a lot, and it will change it like for the foreseeable future. It will stay that way, I think. Like the changes that have come with COVID are going to dictate how Magic's going to work for the next few years. I think the company like understood that casual players, people that play maybe once a week, whatever, are like the people that you want to invest in, because those are the people that buy in the store, that support local stores and all that stuff. Whereas like, for example, I've been one of those like competitive players. They don't care about buying local. They just want to get their cards as cheap as possible. They'll buy them online. They need them for their events. They need to buy a lot. Basically, competitive players is not where Magic should be looking at making their money, because it's just like maybe 1% of that player base. And Commander, as you said, is like a way to play Magic that is literally the best way to play Magic if you're playing Magic for fun. If you see it more as a board game, a social experience. So, and they've really understood that in the past year, and specifically during COVID, and they started making products that are specifically for Commander players, and those have been like selling like crazy, despite the fact that nobody can play with their cards. Like people are just buying them because they're really excited to be able to start to play with them when COVID is gone. So yeah, I think they've done a good job recently on understanding that.
If there was one thing to improve about the game right now, what would it be?
The pro scene is something that they struggle with so much. It changes almost every year. It's terrible. They like try to listen to the player base and the other pros and all that stuff, but like too much. They'll do something that, in my opinion, is good, and opinion of some other pros is a good system, and then like 10 other like known personalities are going to say something about it, and they're going to be, okay, we're sorry, then we're going to change that. And then they keep changing everything. They never like, they need to like focus and be like, okay, that's what we want to do. We might change. We're okay to change this and that depending on the feedback, but not everything. And they keep changing everything. And it changed, like people don't understand anything about the pro system anymore because they just change it so many times. Of course, COVID didn't happen. Like all the events that were supposed to happen physically, were all moved online. And because of that, they had to change a lot of stuff. So like right now at a moment, it's a mess, but it's understandable. But I think overall, they need to do a better job with the pro scene in general.
So you were a pro. Is what you just talked about one of the reasons why you opted out or you retired?
No, I don't mind. Like the way I think is like, give me rules. I don't care. I'll play. I don't care how the system is, but I just think it could be better.
So why did you retire then?
I just wanted to focus more on a career that would be like forever, as in like, because when you're a pro, it's almost year to year. You never know what to expect, really. You might have a great year. You might not have a great year. Like, how do you plan a life around that? How do you want to have kids pay a mortgage, whatever? Like, it's way too inconsistent. And I was kind of tired of that. So for all the pro tours, which there was 4 per year, it's like the biggest event every 3 months. We would often practice like 1 or 2 weeks intensively. Like you would play 12 hours a day for 2 weeks to practice for that event. And often you would do that with a team. For a while we did that. We would rent a house at the location of where the pro tour is. And then we would just play Magic for 2 weeks and try to find what is the best deck that we can play for that event. One of the most frustrating thing that like, you put the nail in the coffin for me was one pro tour where essentially in testing, I was the person who practiced the most. I was the reason why we found a deck. That deck was the best deck to play at the Pro Tour. And I did super poorly, mostly I like to say based on variance. Like sometimes it just happens. Like you're the most prepared person in the room. You're the best player in the room. I wasn't the best player in the room. That's not what I'm saying, but I was like super well prepared. And I should have like done a decent result, but like sometimes just luck is not on your side. It hits you and then you don't do well. And you're like, fuck, I just spent 2 weeks, like literally nonstop. I could have worked 2 weeks, $15 an hour, and I would have made like so much money. Whereas here, I just couldn't even play the second day of the tournament because I was eliminated. So that feeling is like something that, you live with it, that it can happen, but when it happens and it's your full-time job, you're like, I would like to have a job where this doesn't happen.
At the end of the day, you didn't get paid. So no matter what happened, it's frustrating and you can't pay your bills with that, right?
Exactly. So that's the first thing that I was like, okay, now I want to try to do something else. I had quite a bunch of money from all the tournament winnings for a while, and I wasn't doing anything else besides like going out and playing Magic. So didn't have that much to pay. And then I ventured in many projects, but the most successful and the one I'm still doing now is the Mythic Society, which is like an online tournament circuit. And that's why I'm saying that I don't like the pro scene. Is I feel like I would be able to do better if I was running it. So I kind of started that at a small scale with the Mythic Society. So I run online events and I run them the way I think community will want it. I've been having a lot of fun doing that. It's been decently successful to the point where starting a store that was in the same kind of entity as that would be successful, and it was. So
yeah, that's kind of a clever way to do it, because at the same time you say like you kind of have an idea of how the pro scene should be ran, and now you're actually getting some exposure at running tournaments and stuff like that, and maybe eventually down the line, hey, you get a call from Wizard and said, hey, you want to run our shit? Who knows?
They've asked me before to not run the tournaments and stuff like that, but they wanted to hire me for play and design. Play and design is like their department of they hire either retired pro players or current pro players, and they give them contracts to essentially balance the game. And they asked me for that, but that's not what I want to do. That I want to I want to design the tournaments, not the cards.
One of the thing I want to talk about is, and maybe talk about your most notable or your most interesting tournament you've been to. And I feel like is the answer going to be that whole draft for the Tarmogoyf?
It depends. This was certainly something that I am happy happened.
All right, because I don't want to get into it in this video. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap a button right above this finger here that links you to the video where we actually talk about the Tarmogoyf. And I'm really excited. Right. So guys, tune into that video because it's going to be good stuff, I swear. Whether you already know the story or not, I mean, this is pretty 10 out of 10 in my opinion. So was there something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, every pro tour in general is just a great experience. Like, as the atmosphere at that tournament, it's like 300 players. It's 300 of the best Magic players in the world. Like, you always have that stress. There's like a lot of money on the line. The locations are always great for the pro tours. Like there was Hawaii, there was like a Kyoto, just all like insane city, like San Diego, places in Europe like Paris and all that stuff. So I can't really pick one specifically, honestly. Like, it's just an insane experience every time. So
you said 300 players. That's for the pro tours.
Yeah, it's like between 300 and 500.
Is it the same thing for the Grand Prix?
No. So the Pro Tours is like the pinnacle event of every. There's 4 a year, and you need to be invited. So essentially, the big picture is the best 300 to 500 players every 3 months get invited to that one tournament. And then the Grand Prix, it's open to everyone, but there's a lot more. There's like 50, 60 Grand Prix per year, and they're almost everywhere in the world. Sometimes there's one like in America and one in Japan at the same time. So usually only local people or people from the same continent go to them.
Yeah, so you don't travel internationally to do the Grand Prix. You'd stay
exactly.
Canada or in the States maybe, but not like much further than that, I guess.
Yeah, you wouldn't go to Europe to play a Grand Prix. First of all, because you probably have enough in your continent that you don't really have to travel, and second of all, the prize pool is not enough for you to like pay a 1K plane ticket to go there. So
if we talk about money, what did you need to make it to top 8, top 16, top 32? How would you make it the money?
It depends. Usually top 100 is like where you start cashing. The Grand Prix, like you asked, the Pro Tours have between 300 and 500 players. Invited players, and then the Grand Prix, the average is like 1,000 players. But as I said, it's open to everyone, so it depends on the location. If it's like super central, maybe there'll be like 3K players. But if it's like South America, it might be like 600.
What's your favorite format?
Limited. Limited is like, it's called limited because you open packs to make your deck instead of you bring your own deck to the tournament. So there's different ways to play limited. The most common one is draft, where like you have a table, 8 players. There's 8 players sat around a table, and then you all open 3 packs. You like take a card. It works like a hockey draft or a football draft, where you pick the players that you're going to play with. In this instance, you pick the cards that you're going to play with. So you pick a card, you pass the pack to the person to your left, the person to your right passes you. So like you can read signals. Okay, he passed me like a red card, so he's probably not playing red. So you want to play red, like. So
there's strategies.
There's a lot of
drafting, not just like pick the best card. You gotta build. Yeah, it makes sense.
Like most of the strategy is actually outside of the actual game that you're going to play, and there's a lot that goes into the preparation way more than the games, and that's what I am most good at and like most about Magic, is mostly the preparation than the actual gameplay.
And so you said 2 weeks at 12 hours a day, so it's a week or two of full-time work that you spend doing deck testing. Like, it takes a lot of, like, you spend like entire days just running with, I assume, other people and testing it out against stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you're a pro, you basically always play kind of, but when there's pro tours, that's when you like intensively test because you cannot test for because there's like always new cards and stuff, and the meta games are evolving. You can't really like test a month in advance because the first 2 weeks that you're going to test are going to be useless 4 weeks later because it changed too much. So yeah, but for the pro tours, that's why I was saying like 1 or 2 weeks because that's when it matters the most. And yeah, just get into it, and it's worth it because it's a tournament with a lot of money into it.
Was there any point in time in either a Grand Prix or a pro tour where someone came up with something that was completely meta breaking? And you can go a little bit maybe into magic terms that maybe not everyone will understand, but for magic amateurs out there that actually know what you're saying, was there something that came out like crazy, like wow, this guy just like broke this tournament by coming out with this idea or this deck or this?
It definitely happened. Usually it's not one person. So usually pro tours, people will test in teams. There's people playing by themselves, going by themselves, but they're usually big, like 10 big teams of 10, 15 people each. And like I was saying, like when I'm testing in a house before a pro tour, that's when I'm with a team and we're 10 to 15 of some of the best minds in the game. So that's when, of the few instances that someone like brought a deck that nobody thought about and it was the best deck to play, nobody expected it, and it was just doing broken things and all that stuff. When it happened, it was from one of those teams, and like it happened to me in like a few tournaments, and it just feels incredible because like you factor in how good you are at playing the game, you factor in luck, and now you have this other factor that people don't have where you have a deck that's just better than theirs every time, and they're not prepared, so they don't know how to play against your deck. They don't have cards in their deck to try to beat you either. So like it just feels like you have free wins all the time, but it honestly doesn't happen often. Like especially now with internet being way more prominent than when I started playing, information travels so quick that some random guy on Reddit posted about this idea about the deck. The guy's not even good at Magic, but he thought about the interaction between those two cards. And then a good person saw it and it was like, oh, mate, he responds to that thread and he's like, oh, maybe we should play this, this, and this, and this. And then a pro from a team sees it, tests it online, plays against someone who's like, oh, that's interesting. And then screenshot like the game on Magic Online, sends it to someone, and there you go. Like
Next
everyone
thing
knows
you know,
about it.
boom, yeah.
So nowadays it's a lot harder to like come up with something that nobody thought about.
All right, that's it for the Alias segment. Make sure to join us tomorrow at 7 when we hop on the segment Let's Chat.